should work. Welcome to Sticky. I don't know why the audio gives us such a problem on this show, but we have got it now. Everybody post up if you can hear me. Tonight we're going to go through a couple of things, and we're going to talk about a different topic than what I had planned on talking about, which is, let me make sure that we've got our stuff here. Hold on. So we can see everybody's comments. There's too many things. I don't have sound. You should have it now. For some reason, my comments come by. So there it is. So I was talking to Cody Banks earlier this morning. He was asking a couple of questions around bodies. And he was asking particularly around the support of a body. So that's what we're going to dedicate the show to, is the body. Now, there's a number of theories and things that we'll cover around this. But if you didn't get a chance to watch the, I guess, golly, it might have been a year ago or so now, we did an entire show on a wind tunnel. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, go back. You might have to go through about 100 lives, but you should be able to find it. And we talk a lot about theories that we're going to talk about tonight, but we're going to go a little more in depth into how it works. So our preferred body here at Sticky Icky is the MR Customs body. They actually have two versions that are available. I don't think they're pulling the other one anymore, but this is what's kind of their Gen 1 body that they had made up. And then I guess about a month and a half ago, they replaced it with this Gen 2 body. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, you'll see a lot of folks will have actually two bodies on them. And we'll get into why that is, what's the difference between those, but moreover, what's the theory behind that. So let's see if we've got Mr. Goodman. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. We got Daniel. We've got Dave. We've got a few guys on. I know we started late. I told everybody we'd be on at 8:30, and we got held up at Sonny's Real Pit Barbecue, and so I was not going to walk out on my big deal to come do this show. So we're starting at 9. We'll pick up some more folks. So let's get into some theory here. Let me bring up my favorite thing here. So when we think about Arrow, and this is going to be pretty much the entire story. So if you think about our ground, that is here. And we've got our, obviously, if you don't use tires against the ground, then we got a bigger discussion to talk about. And then we're going to talk a little bit about modern lay model design. So you'll have a nose, and we're just going to talk just super general right now, is essentially what we have is a wedge. And then so that we can have a driver somewhere along the way, we add some greenhouse to the wedge. Now, why do I say it's a wedge? Well, part of it is, if you actually look at the shape of the body, this is going to be a little bit of a modified wedge. It's got the nose, which that's the beginning of our wedge. Then it actually continues through the entire body and then ends at the spoiler. And so we've actually got this angle here, which we refer to as rake. And then we're picking up a little bit of rake here in the roof. Now, that kind of goes back to this. So what happens as the car goes through the air? We're going to pick up basically all of this wind. And it's going to try and distribute itself everywhere that's got a little bit of a face. Now, the way that we kind of think about how we hang bodies and how we manage airflow is all around. We want to pin the nose. Now, what that means to us is that we want to get all of the air to go over the top of the body, pushing down on the hood. So what you end up with, let me just add another page, and we'll come back to this guy. If we kind of zoom in, to that front piece. You've got a nose. Hopefully you've got a cutout for your tire. And then you're going to have this modified wedge. You'll have a splitter. Kind of looks like this. Now, this splitter here, super important. Do not cut the splitter off. I've seen a few guys doing that. The splitter, what this is actually doing is you've got a flat surface here, and that actually creates a whole bunch of downforce for the nose, and it's an imperative part. That is not something that we cut off. Even if you're like, hey, I don't have enough ride height, raise the body. You need, this is a really important part of the body. Now, the second thing that we've got is we've got then all of this nose. And so what's happening is I've got air that's trying to push in, it's trying to push down. And if I've got the right angle, I'm going to create downforce, which means all of this pressure on the outside is going to push down, which is going to load my tires, and which is going to make the car turn. Now, how much of this air is dependent on a number of really critical pieces. Now, part of this is I need to know my distance here to here. First thing that determines the amount of pressure that's going to go down. Now, why is that? Well, if you have ever taken a look at me, you'll know that I am a big boy. Now, when I was in grade school, all these kids are like, hey, I want to teeter-totter with you. And I would be like, great, I love to have friends and I want to teeter-totter with you. Now, when this is equal, two kids of the same weight. So if this kid weighs 10 pounds, and this kid weighs 10 pounds, they'll teeter-totter back and forth, up and down. Oh, it's fun. Now, this jackass jumps off and this kid slams to the ground, right? Because I've got all of the weight on this side of the log or whatever we're using here. We'll call it a pivot point. And you go crash into the ground. Now, say he decides that he doesn't want to do that, that he's a decent kid, but somebody put the teeter-totter at a funny spot, and this end's way shorter. Now, what happens is this 10-pound kid cannot lift, or can't, actually it goes the other way. He can't drop this. So the way it would look, let me redraw this so it's a little clearer because I drew it backwards for you. There we go. What happens is we go back to our pen. I got my teeter-totter. I got a short end. I got one kid here. Got one kid here. They both equal the same weight, 10 pounds, 10 pounds. This kid will not have enough angle to lift this other kid. So it's the same is true on the front of our cars. If I've got more nose, so this is my wheel is my pivot, and this is my teeter-totter, the more that I go this direction, so the more that I go to the front of the car, the more I'm going to have available to the nose, which is going to put more force on my tires. So when we go into some of the theories on mounting bodies, you're going to go through a few things. You're going to hear, hey, I want to see how much body is in front of the nose, and you want to measure that out. You're also going to see in the design that we're trying to channel as much air onto this front piece. So what that's really doing is it's creating an angle that allows me not to have to mount the body out so far because I've got an inclined, a steeper incline, which is going to collect more air. Now, nothing's free. And this is what happens in this situation is, and this is a pretty common thing. So in a high horsepower class, you guys get the idea of the body here. In a high horsepower class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a lot of pressure in the back of the car from acceleration. It's going to lift this nose. So I want to keep this nose pretty low to the ground, and we'll get into that piece. And I'm going to want a lot of pressure out here on the front. So I may go a little bit longer. In a low horsepower class, this is super dependent on the balance of the car. So I may pull this back because I don't want to pin the nose down as hard because I don't have near the rear force that I would have. The acceleration doesn't lift the nose, which means I've got, in some cases, a balance challenge. So let me go into a little bit of detail around that. Let me close this guy up. Close. So what happens then, and this is the most critical part, close, hold on, I'm on the wrong layer, there we go, is you got the ground. And then we've got, again, that's the splitter, and then you've got the beginning of the body, and then somewhere along here I've got a cut, I've got a wheel, I got another cut, like that, right? Now, this is the part that gets left out. This height, ultra critical. We run, at most tracks that we can get away with, we'll run 10 millimeter to somewhere around 12, maybe 14 millimeter. If this gap is too high, this is an imperative problem. You will never get the car to work properly. You've got to seal this front end up, because what we want to do, and again, not to get too preachy on this, but this is a really important kind of piece of bodies and by the way, handling. Because here's what happens is I'm going to pick up, if I've got this properly pinned to the ground, I'm going to pick up air here. I'm going to pick up air here. I'm going to pick it up here, just like we discussed. Moreover, I'm going to evacuate air out my wheel wells. So as the car's moving along, air is going to be exiting from out underneath the body, which is going to create a low pressure area. So what happens is it's just like a wing. It's an inverted wing. Is this develops low pressure inside of the front of the body and in here, and I'm evacuating it out the back of the car and out the wheel wells. And what it's going to do is it's going to suck the body down, which is attached to a couple of kingpins or a couple of body posts and things like that, and it's going to load the front of the car. And that's where steering comes from. That's where aero steer comes from. Now, when you look at a body, it's kind of hung properly. What you should see is I've got a big evacuation area down this side. So same thing, you look on this side and you're going to see that we've got a place for the evacuation of the air to go out. That's really a critical design. Now, when you look at, and this body was actually, this is inside of the score, 100% inside of the score rules. What you're going to see when you turn this guy around, and you'll get a really good view of it right here. You're going to see I can almost stick my entire hand between this front fender and the outside of this. So what I'm doing is I'm allowing a ton of air to come out, just like my hand's kind of coming out. I'm letting a ton of air come out. Now, where's that going to go? It's going to go right down the side of my car. Now, why that's important? Because now the car's attitude is going into the corner. I'm beginning to pin this. I'm evacuating the air. And this surface now becomes a steering part of the car. So let me do this. Now, there's a couple of theories on this. And if you're familiar, if anyone's ever been on a boat, what you're going to see is, it's a beautiful day. We should go out and ride on our boat. Now, and you'll see the little waves. Oh, it's waves. And on the back is this either an outboard or a rudder, right? Now, what happens when I turn the rudder this way? What it does is it forces water on this side. It evacuates water on this side, and the boat will turn in the opposite direction that my rudder is going. So if I want to turn, I turn it one way, I turn it the other, right? Now, it's the same thing down the side of our cars. Is as we go into the corner, and this is why we like wings, by the way, is I've got a couple of surfaces. I'm going to break it down really simple. I've got this surface here that's going to have a tire. So everything in this nose, about to the center of the car, this is all front downforce. This part through here is going to be side force. And this through here, you're going to have a spoiler, you're going to have our spoiler stuff, is what I really think of kind of in this area is really our stability or balance. And I can't spell balance. Doggone it. Hold on. Rewind. Oh, wait, we're doing this live. We can't. If you guys have watched enough of these, you'll realize I am a horrible speller. So this is how you got to break it down. So when you think about front downforce, I'm trying to evacuate air out of here, and I'm trying to get it on the nose. The side I want to load. So I want all of that weight to go against the side, which is going to help me turn. And then I'm going to balance it out here. Now, on the other side of the car, if you look at a modern late model, what we're going to see is we actually pitch in the side. So we're going to do the same opposite thing, is we're trying to get the air off of this side. So we want all the air here, and we want to minimize the amount of air here on that as we're going forward, right? So the way that that looks is you're going to see a few things. What was super popular, and this car is compliant with the rules, so it doesn't have the big flare out. But what was super popular in the South here is that we would take and we would flare this side out, and we really like flaring the sides out anyhow. But let me see, this other one, actually this one has a little bit better view of it. So we slide this side out. Now, what that does is it creates a wedge down the side, and it just allows it to pick up more air. Now, if you think about it, all right, I'm pointing in this way, I'm picking up air here. Now I'm going to start getting a lot more pressure here, which is going to allow the car to turn. And then I'm going to balance it out with this and my rear wing. And we'll get to the spoiler and what it's got to do in a second. Same thing on this side. Now, what you'll see when I hold this is down this side, and then I begin about here, it begins to start to turn in. And because what I'm doing is I'm trying to get air off this panel. So what I want to do is evacuate the air, get it down the side, and get it away from here so that it doesn't build up and allows the car to turn. Also, if you think about it, if it's been in this way and it's been in here, I'm picking it up a little bit as that rudder, right? So a lot of kind of pieces in this, and that's what I like about the MR Customs bodies. It's got a lot of the kind of the real late model kind of tendencies, and you can tune these really similar to how you would the aero on a real car. Now, there's a few theories on getting air down through here and how you want it to go through the tunnel. We tend to like a lot of airflow through the tunnel. I think of it kind of as an EDM style. And then we're going to get as much as we can back to the wing as fast as we can do that. Now, what you're going to want to do is let's go back to our friends here. I think we've got the sides covered. Let me go and see if we've picked up any questions. Let's see. Yep, trying to speed up the air. That's exactly as well. We do have a guy that has a NASCAR background there. Danny's exactly right. That's what we're up to. Is we're changing that. And it's basically we're trying to build the wing and get the air moving in the right directions that we want. Now, let's do this. Let's go. We'll close this. Now, this is kind of an important piece, and this actually brings me to what the question was that I got from Cody Banks earlier today is, and it was pretty simple. He said, hey, I've noticed that some of the cars are putting, in some cases, body posts right here, or they're supporting the nose somehow. And then this is our chassis, and you got all this stuff going on. That's absolutely right. The reason we're doing that is because we want to keep this nose pinned. So if we start picking up, whoa, hold on, we just erased half the picture. If we begin to pick up a bunch of air right in here, what it'll do, it'll actually flex the body and it lifts the nose up a little bit. Now, there's a few ways that people are kind of dealing with this. The first is, and if you look at a lot of red cars, what you're going to see is they've got all of their stuff here, and then there's going to be a body post kind of mid car. This is their bumper. That's their front body post. They got this kind of orchestration here, and they got a body post back there, right? And what they're going to do is this will be somewhere in the end of the hood. If you look at some of the other cars, which our cars, the Ghost, what we do is we actually put a brace in here and we catch it. And I'll kind of show you guys on the car. Let me get one that has been ran. And I don't know if you can see it really super well, but these marks right here are from where we support off of our shock tower. Now, I can tell you I haven't ran enough tests. Maybe Danny or somebody has done a little bit more of it. But what I can tell you is there's a few things. One, if you see a bunch of this, that means that the tire has hit the body. And then, like I said, right here, you're going to see this is actually the areas where our mounts hit. Now, I don't know if there's an advantage to here or here. It was really a matter of, for us, the reason that we did it the way we did it was weight. We didn't want to put in the body mount and the post and all of those things. The advantage that the other style has is they can raise and lower that a little bit, and so they can fine tune it in a little more. Ours is more of a static height. Like I said, I haven't ran enough tests to say, oh, we're getting a half an ounce of more downforce on our front shock tower and their leverage this way. I think it's kind of down to something that's really tough to measure, and I'm not sure the performance advantage would be worth spending a day or so trying to figure it out. But the idea is that, yes, you do want to support the body, and if you can poke down in the center of the hood and you can poke down on the splitter and it moves, then you've done an ineffective job of doing the body. Now, before we move off of that, I wanted to talk about that for the body mounting. So in this car, what you're going to see is you're going to see our holes here. Oops, you're not going to see anything because I got it below here. See our holes here and our holes here. And you're going to see the holes in the back and the holes in the back. And they're perfectly round. This body, by the way, let me turn it this way. Hole in the front, slot in the back. What's that do? Well, let me get into that because that's an important part of this. So what you may not think about, or you might have, and then I'm just going to be redundant anyhow, is boom, let me change that, is you've got a chassis right here. Now, on that chassis, you're going to have 2 springs and shocks, right? And then up here, we're going to have 2 springs, etc. And then, so we'll have a point that moves up and down here, a point that moves up and down here. And what's actually occurring too is I'm getting twist over the length of this chassis. Twist. Now, depending on which chassis you're running, the thickness of the chassis, so a 2.5 millimeter is going to, if you're 2.5 millimeter or you're 3 millimeter, you got a bunch of holes cut out of it in different places. It's going to change what the torsional stress of this chassis is. So we're going to be bending not only this way, but we're also going to be twisting the chassis. Now, there's actually another spring on the car, which is the body. Now, the body is pinned here and it's pinned here, which means as this chassis flexes, these body posts are also moving back and forth, and the body is actually absorbing this. And so the body is cupping and pulling, and it's limiting how much of these can move. By putting the slots in the back, by putting that slot in the back, the body post goes in the center, and now I'm allowing that body post to move in either direction. So where we use that trick is on tracks where I want to get as much rear forward bite as possible. And so I want that front end or that rear end to go a little bit forward, grab some traction, and I'm going to take that spring rate of that body out. And that's why you would use those slots. So it's really popular kind of Indiana, northern area where they're a little bit lower bite. You got minimal tire that we've got way more tire probably down here than we need with greens. They've got less tires because of the purple stripe stuff. But that's kind of the big story out of that. So that's one of the last tricks. Now, I'm going to wrap with this discussion. And I'm just going to label it here, which is our spoiler. And it's a spoiler alert, boys and girls. This is, I think, one of the most misunderstood parts of the car. Now, first, let's get some terminology out of the way, because I don't know if everybody has it. If I'm repeating something, let me know. So a modern spoiler is deck lid mounted in most cases, either above or below the deck, because we're trying, again, you're wanting to minimize the width of stuff that's keeping air from flowing out of the car. And so moving it on the deck lid, it also provides torsional support for the chassis or for the body. This little kick up is a wicker bill. And if you're a fan of IndyCar, they actually can change the wicker bills on the back of an IndyCar. We unfortunately can't do that. And then this is effectively our spoiler. Now we measure that this way, and the max that we're allowed is 2 inches in 17.5 and 21.5. And it's measured in this. Actually, they measure it off of the top of the wicker bill. It's measured across here, so 2 inches. Now, the best way to think about this is a balancer. That's it. So what we want to do is, and this is a great example. This is actually the Track Products rear spoiler. It's laser cut, and every one of them is the same. We've been on these now since Wendell brought them out. If you guys are not using Track Products, he has got some of the best stuff available. He's got the best bearings. They're ABEC 9. I talk about them all the time. Love the bearings. He's also getting these cut and bent, and we get them from him. You're going to see a couple of different holes. That's one. The hole above it actually holds the 2 inch. This looks like probably an 1.5 inches on the back here. It's these side plates, consistent, meet the templates, bolt them on, and you're ready to rock and roll. Just great products. So get with Wendell or Jason or the guys at the track, and you can get these. They make them for, golly, I think just about everything. The piece of this that I really want to talk about is our theory, and I'll entertain some of the other guys, is I want to suck the nose down, and I want to get as much air evacuated out of the nose. And I want to make this car turn as hard as I possibly can get it to turn. And then when I just can't hold on, I'm going to adjust my spoiler. So if the car's turning too hard going in or it feels unsettled, I'm going to go up in spoiler. If the car's not turning in, I'm going to balance it. So everything that we do, it's funny to see it backwards here on my monitor. Everything that we do is nose first, balance with the spoiler. There's not a case where I'm like, oh goodness, the car is too loose, so I'm going to change my spoiler. I'm looking at overall balance. If I've got a super loose car, I've yet to be able to fix it with a real spoiler. There's not enough room in there. What I'm really looking to do is balance the bodies out, because that's one of the areas that I can do. And so long track, short track, intermediate track, driving to the track, the only thing that we want to use the spoiler for is really just the balance of these cars out. Everything else is going to be done by the time you get there, because you're not going to move the roof. You're not going to move the chassis or the chassis inside of the body. This is your last adjustment that you're going to make. Now, a lot of guys will lean on it a little bit more than we do, which is awesome. It's, you can have a number of different theories. That's what makes racing so great. But again, we believe that the entire car is activated off of the right front. It's where we spend all of our time thinking about whether we're pinning it too hard on the right front, why we're not pinning it enough, why we're not evacuating enough air, getting enough nose, and then we worry about the back. And it goes back to, there's an old adage, stick the rear, make it steer. It's exactly the same idea. It's like, if we can get enough forward bite, then we're just going to keep driving on the front of the car, because that's what's winning races. And if it's too down in the track, I'm going to rob horsepower. If it's too out of the track, I'm going to go find a wall somewhere. So that's the kind of the overview on bodies. I'm going to go to some questions here, and it looks like we got a few. So let's see. Mr. Rob Goodman joined us tonight. It's always good seeing you. I don't know if we did any cussing, Jason. We're trying to clean it up around here. Let's see. We talked about Danny's already. Do you run them with side dams, and how do you tune for them? Well, that's a good question, Mike. I'll take a second. So we don't get to run side dams anymore, but if we did, mounting the side dam, if you're going to do it effectively, should be at the end of our cap and will be somewhere on the front. Now, normally there's a rule. I think it used to be like 1 inch from the center line or something like that. If you can go farther, it's actually going to make the car turn harder. Farther back, it's going to actually make the car a lot tighter. So where you adjust that, and again, the height, more height, it's going to give you more side force, and that direction that you're going to go. So I wish we could do that. It'd be a fun race to go back to doing. Let's see. The stiffer the body, less flex, puts more pressure on the tire. The body needs to be mounted solid. Absolutely. Danny, that's perfect. If you want air to go over the body, you want air to go over the body and down the side. On the side skirts, create side down force. Air out from the body. Yep. John has got it also. And to get the air out of the wheel wells, let's see, to suck down the whole car. Do they have a website? So MR Customs, it's a great question. He's available on Facebook. Greg Morrow, fantastic guy. We've been dealing with him for a long time. Sticky Icky is a dealer, but usually we just tell everybody to get him from the track or Greg. Having double shipping makes 0 sense on something that big. The only people that make money are UPS. But get with him. Oh, Justin, Aero Push. We'll get to that one. The rear spoiler. That I do not, but if Jason is still on, he is one of the proprietors of Track Products and can help you out with that. Or David, send me a note. I've got some here. I'll sell you one of ours, and then I'll just out of our stock, and then I'll get it from him. So I can take care of that with you. Let's see. Twist my bodies on the chassis slightly to get the, I try to twist my bodies on the chassis slightly to get the right rear. Oh, yeah, if you guys want to hang on, we'll go into bonus time here. So I just noticed it's got my name up tonight. That's kind of weird. I got to go back and see why that is. However, I had a couple of people post up that they didn't know who the hell I was. So maybe that's not a bad thing to have my name up there for a while. So we'll take on the first question, which is twisting the body. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to draw this. Let's see. Let me erase this. Let me see if I can do a fair, marker did I grab a hold of here? If I can do a fair representation of a 3D car here. All right. Matt, you guys get it, right? Now, let me put the wicker bill in because that's important. Guys will get tired of me talking about the wicker bills. Now, it looks a little bit less like a late model and a little more like a, what was that car they ran? The Superbirds. Okay, so this corner here should be the lowest. This corner here should be the highest. Now, what you're going to do is you want to twist this so as the air comes across, as you go into the corner, you're going to pin this side down, and the air is going to flow through at a diagonal, and it's going to hit here. So what that twisting does is it allows the car to pick up more area or more air across the surfaces. I think twisting, and John, I'd be interested what your opinion is, but what we did in our testing is twisting actually helps the center of the car. It actually makes it a little more neutral because we're picking up more air here than we would. On a Mr. Customs, I'll give away a speed secret. A Mr. Customs body, you can pick up 1 ounce of downforce if you hang it right, by just adjusting this corner and this corner. So John's 100% right. And that 1 ounce of downforce comes from having the right heights comparison. So again, this will be our highest. This will be our, I guess, second highest, third highest, and then that's the highest. And so you want that whole car kind of raked across. But there is a ton. Wind tunnel, we actually measured that out, and that's a real number from the wind tunnel. So I know it for a fact. We got it on scales. So let's see. Could you not just cut the spoiler higher on the left side and the right side? No. Spoiler, again, is balancer. The spoiler is not going to do that. What we're looking for is, we're looking for air across the entire length of the body. That's where we're going to get the most bang for the buck. What you'll actually get if you just hang the spoiler crooked is you're actually going to reduce the amount of air on the side that's not hung crooked, and you just don't see a whole lot of change. You throw it in a wind tunnel, and you actually see zero change because nobody's going to do something silly like a quarter or a half an inch angle. And because what you're going to do, you're pinned at 2 inches. So are you going to go to, 1.5 inches, 1 inch, and give up all of that downforce? So you've got to get it by raking the body. Again, rules only allow us to be a maximum of 4 inches off the bottom of the chassis. So you've got to get a little bit, do a little bit of work in there. But great question, buddy. Appreciate it. Let's see. Even in pan car. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about dirt late models because they offer us the most freedom. If we were to switch this over to our friend the pan, one of my personal favorites, if we look at, let's say, 13.5 open, what they're doing is they're taking the shoop, and they're cutting the majority of the front of that Camry off. And then they're leaving this back about as long as they can get it. They're cutting all the way up. I think the grill is right in here. Again, you want to pin that front as far as you can get it. The only thing that limits them in pan car is actually the deck is hidden into this. And since they have way less movement, they can pin that way down in there. And you're going to get this back end higher, and then you're going to put a little bit of, they've gone almost no spoiler now. But yeah, the other thing in a pan car that we didn't talk about is this windshield area is also pretty critical on where you mount that. So pan cars, slightly different. 100% of the principles still apply. You don't get to do near the trickery that we get to do in late model, and you have a windshield. But great question there. So let's see. I actually meant to get the front and the left. Kind of like you build in yacht. Yeah. So back to your, let me switch over to that again. Yeah, so when you look at the front of the car, I probably just didn't do a great job expressing it, is you're going to see and I'm going to make it a really big, this is the ground, this is the tires, and then you're going to have the body, and you're going to have this side higher than that side. I don't know. I think you might be able to see it me level it out. There you go. You got a pretty good view of it head on. Is this side. Now we pick up some molding here and some other things, but if it's not too clear, this side, ooh, if I hold it straight, there you go. You can see this side actually sits a little bit lower. You see the new car is even more pronounced. Let me get it straight on for you guys. Let me adjust it in. There you go. Now you can really see it. It's a good, golly, maybe half an inch, or nah, probably not that. It's probably about a 1/4 inch of over the top there. So let's see. What body does Reese run? Reese runs the MR Customs, and he switches between. He actually runs these two bodies. He runs the MR Customs body. This is the Gen 1, and that's a Gen 2. For big tracks, we run the Gen 1. For small, tight tracks where he wants to corner, he runs the Gen 2, and he runs the body actually in the same mounting positions that I do. He makes a couple of tweaks that I don't do, but he likes a super aggressive, super hard turning car, and his body's set up a little bit differently than mine is on that. And most of that is kind of positioning the greenhouse and some different things there. So, but he follows everything we've talked about. Again, play around with it. That's the best thing to do. What's the height difference of all four corners? I think it's about it. I think it'd be about 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't take much to rake in the body. Yeah. So I don't know. I think you can see it pretty good. And oh, let me level it out. There you go. That's pretty good illustration of the amount of rake that's that we put in the cars. Pretty significant stuff there. Decked body, really that much better. MR Customs versus Protoform, it's not comparable. It's 1/10 to 1/10.5 down here on the tracks that we run, maybe 2/10. Last year, before the MR Customs bodies, at the score race, we were about 3/10 slower than when we switched the body. Significant. But it's not just decking, it's the entire body is superior in every way. When you get to 21.5 where you've got to run the Buckeye, it doesn't matter because you got to run the Buckeye. But all of the principles that we've talked about play the same there. How well do you think the Protoform Cyclone 10 is? In the South, I would paint it up for a show car and never run it on the track. Not to be rude, it's not a competitive body on the tracks that we run. You'll go to the A main of the score race. Actually go to the A main and the B main of the score races, and there won't be anything outside of an MR Customs body right now, just because that's the hot body that everybody's got a lot of time on. Cyclone 5-6 years ago, yeah, it was good. It was a solid body for what was available. The Nor'easter replaced that, and that was the end of the Cyclone. And so you're really kind of looking at either a Nor'easter or you're looking at MR Customs bodies, and there's a reason you don't see them. Watch score races, watch races up. So Dylan, everybody from the South, Wendell, myself, Tickle, Reese, all were on MR Customs bodies at Limestone. About up there it was about 2/3 of the A main when we were all up were on MR Customs bodies. So yeah, I would 100% run that body. So any other questions? Man, we went 46 minutes. We haven't done that a long time, but a lot of information I wanted to get covered. Again, if you guys remember, we mentioned we were going to give a couple of bodies of Sticky Icky away, a couple of bottles of Zero. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give them out to a couple of guys that have contributed a lot on this. So John Dannenberger, if you can send me your information, I'll send one to you. And then the other one, Walt Anderson, send me your mailing information. We'll send you one. And Appreciate everybody for the contributions and your support for Sticky Icky. We will be at Little Indy. If you're in South Carolina and have an opportunity to race this weekend, our dear friend Bobby Bow is dealing with cancer. He's got surgery next week, so this is his last race or last time being at the track for a while. So we're all gonna go there, and if you have a chance to do that, if you can't find a place to race, and get out there. And like I said, if you need anything, always go to Sticky Icky's Facebook page. Reese or myself will answer every question that you got. Or on the rare occasion, Mr. Rob Goodman will also answer questions. So you get three people for the price of one on that. But appreciate it. You guys take care. We will see you next week. Probably moving to 9, but watch between 8:30 and 9 for Sticky Live. Take care.